朝でございます。東京8月。さあ朝ごはん作っていくわよ。
I should have listened to Asmongold. This shouldn't be a man's job. I should have a girlfriend do this.
You might be wondering why me, the dictionary definition of a slob, have decided to make a change and start living like a normal human being.
Actually, maybe it's better that I just show you.
You've probably heard that Japan has a huge hikikomori problem. Hikikomori are people who are withdrawn from society and basically spend all their time in their own room or apartment. It is a huge growing problem since already there are around 1 million people in Japan confined in their apartments. Make that 1,000,001. Since hikikomoris have become normalized, it is no surprise that people have started to watch content made by them too.
最後に使うなこれ。もうこれで、ね、何作るか分かるよね。カレー食べたいななんて。
We people are attracted to extremes. That's why shows like Keeping Up with the Kardashians and Hoarders are popular. If we put people on a spectrum, most people live normal lives, around here, and they are fascinated by people who live very different lives compared to theirs. And the more extreme you go, the more you stand out.
この上京してから4年以上一度もお掃除しない部屋を軽く片付けましょう。よーし、引きこもり歴10年の最強ちゃんが10秒で作れるカレーライスを教えようじゃないか。
This has caused Hikikomori content creators to compete who can live the most disgusting lives in order to get views. Some people just pretend to live in filth, like this girl who cleaned up her trash and put it behind her to pretend she's living that Hikikomori lifestyle. And then there's the real deals, like Haritsu, who popped off recently for cooking and eating literally rotten food. It's obvious that he is clearly playing it up for the camera, even though of course he is living in an absolute nightmare apartment. But it's working. This guy has tens of millions of views on each of his videos, and every day more people are entering into the competition.
どうしよう。こぼしちゃった。
The most recent one being Saikyo Chan, who I want to concentrate on today, because last week her videos became mega viral, being shared all over the internet. Now it's pretty obvious why she immediately started trending on Twitter and had her videos shared on Reddit, not to mention getting millions of views on TikTok. It is rare to see a pretty young girl living in these kind of conditions, which by itself is novel, so it's not surprising people started sharing them. But I think the biggest reason is that since she is a pretty girl, she immediately has multiple audiences interested in this kind of content. First of all, there are those who like watching other people who are doing worse than them. Then there are people who relate to her, like other hikikomoris. And lastly, those people who find out she's never had a boyfriend and think to themselves, that could be me. I can fix her.
この顔で歩き行きたー。
One thing I don't want to do in this video is make fun of her or be like, oh my god, look at her, she's so crazy. Because I actually watched an interview that she did a year ago, before she became famous, and it is very obvious that she doesn't have her life in control because of external factors.
いや親と縁切ってるんで一応他人ってなってるからなんか何年も会ってないから今生きてるかどうかすら分かんないんですよね。生存すら分かんなくてもう何年も会ってないしなんか連絡なんかそのメールとか LINE とか電話すらしないんですよね。
高1で初めて精神病棟入院？
そうですね。高1ぐらいから精神がかかるようになってなんか実際なんかその入院する前にもなんか心療内科かなその入院する精神科医科の心療内科とかかかったこととかってなんか私は漢方薬 処方箋飲んでた時期もありました。だから漢方薬飲みながらこう通ってた時期もありましたね。
どれぐらいの期間に入院してたんですか
16歳から17歳で1年と1ヶ月です。確か小走りかな、早歩きで逃げましたね。あんまり速く走っちゃって病院なんで廊下なんで危ないんで、とにかく早く小走りか早歩きで逃げました。そういうこともありましたね。
I think you can criticize and make fun of people who could have control of their lives if they just, tried. Like, I think you can make fun of me for the way I live, or for my weight, or something that I could change if I actually tried, if I just put my mind into it, because I am still a relatively sane person, and the reason I am the way I am is simply because of my own fault. To an extent, of course. I wouldn't want to wake up every day to people ridiculing me online, but I think you get the point. However, in this interview, Saikyo Chan goes on detail about her past of abuse, parental troubles, and mental illness. It quickly becomes clear that it isn't her fault she ended up in this situation, and honestly, it's sad that some of us have to struggle like her in life. Especially in Japan, where once you drop out of society, there are very little people out there willing to help, and mental health care is something Japan as a society is very much behind in. Most of her videos are about her cooking instant ramen either in her apartment or outside, where she very much stands out. One thing I personally wish she would post more are karaoke videos, because she is actually a really good singer. Though, unsurprisingly, her most watched videos are those where she shows around her apartment. The problem with her apartment isn't just that she suffers from it, because it actually affects everyone around her too. The apartment complex she lives in has a restaurant downstairs and a bakery right next to it, both of which have to suffer from the cockroaches coming out of her apartment. Not to mention her neighbours. They have banded together to try and get her to move out because the smell and cockroaches are making their way into their apartments. Just 2 weeks ago, they threatened to take her to civil court unless she either changes her behaviour or moves out. Japan, and especially Tokyo, is very densely populated, so having troublesome neighbours like her is something that really is a nightmare to the people around her. And I should know. My upstairs neighbor had a similar situation going on, which is why, as you can see, I put toilet paper to fill out the holes in my ceiling because cockroaches started to come out of there. I also found out that he had made a Grindr account with pictures taken off my Instagram, inviting people to his apartment for threesomes. His plan was obviously that I wouldn't of course show up, and then he would be with the victim there, just two of them, and be like, well, since we're here. Not to mention my lovely neighbor who used to make this noise until 5 AM every single day. So from personal experience I can say that troublesome neighbors are something you really do not want in Japan, because everyone lives so close to each other. It's impossible to avoid interactions with these people. We will see how the situation with Saikyo Chan develops, since she just made it big online, and right now all she is doing is live streaming to thousands of people on TikTok and posting pictures of her infected food with mold growing out of it on Twitter. She also hasn't paid her rent in about 2 years, and now with the neighbors taking her into civil court, it's hard for me to think that she's gonna be living in her current place for too long. And I'm not saying this trend of rotmaxing, where people brag about their bad living conditions, is only happening in Japan, since recently there have been some Western live streamers too, boasting about their own filthiness.
I went over what we have. We have a roach infestation. Get some of these bowls down, that's a little crusted on, might need to soak it in some hot water first.
It makes them feel normal, and I know it sounds weird because this isn't normal. But I think to many people, seeing millionaires like Asmongold live like they aren't millionaires gives them a certain authenticity, and it's part of their charm that money hasn't changed them. In the end, I think we can all agree that even though this kind of content is popular and it will get you views, having this kind of trend in our society is pretty much a net negative. I have to be honest, watching hours of these poor girls attempt to become famous, it wasn't fun.
ちなみにじゃあ今はどういう目標があるんですか？なんかこういう。
目標ですか？
はい、なんか生きていく上でという。
さっきも話有名になりたいですね。